And if anybody smells what The Rock is cooking, it's me. Look how big my damn nose is!
Well, as I've mentioned here a few times at this point, the month of June marks the official 10-year anniversary for Wrestling with Regret. And to celebrate the big month, I decided for the classic reviews, I'm going to look at some shows that are very near and dear to my heart for very different reasons. First, this week, we turn the clock back to 1998, in the throes of the very beginning of my wrestling passion, as we look to Fully Loaded in Your House from July 26, 1998 at the Selland Arena in Fresno, California. This is not only the inaugural Fully Loaded show, but it's also the last one of the 3 that have been done that I need to review in order to complete the set. In the World Wrestling Federation, at this point, business is doing well. They're finally beating WCW in the ratings on a consistent basis. One of the damnedest moments in wrestling history just took place at King of the Ring with Mankind's fall from the cell, and a young Brian Zane's beginning to become more and more fascinated with this whole wrestling thing. As I've mentioned before, the time like just before King of the Ring 98 is what I consider to be my real jumping off point as a fan at 13 years old, but it's this period here, the build between King of the Ring and Fully Loaded, where I began to form a lot of my core memories as a fan, the ones that resonate the deepest with me, like, Austin losing and regaining the championship after 24 hours, DX versus The Nation, or The Undertaker and Kane in cahoots. This stuff was absolutely my jam at the time. The show actually opens up with a backstage hit with Jerry Lawler entering Sable's dressing room, and he wants to know if we can get a sneak peek of what she's going to wear for the bikini contest later, and so she puts on a show for him for Jerry's eyes only. I'm kind of surprised they didn't put a big awooga sound effect over the video when Jerry was watching Sable there, and you know what? At this point, it's very clear who they're selling to the very opening seconds of this pay-per-view. And talk about a contrast in themes. We go from that to this very dramatic, overwrought hype package about the main event. It ends with the line, "Questions will be answered, but will the answers themselves become questions?" It's an all-time line. I love that. As long as you don't think about the line too hard, it's pretty epic. There's a big old attitude banner on the main part of the set, which makes the whole thing seem kind of boring and uninspired, like a lot of pay-per-view sets from 98 around this time. But if you think about it, it's very much like a business statement to have the Attitude Era logo so just like big and so omnipresent when everyone's making their entrances, because this show, for better or for worse, really has some of like the core of what makes the Attitude Era memorable for a lot of people, especially of my age. So I think that it's very appropriate to just have this big attitude tagline on the main set, because it's telling you right there what the product's all about. A sold-out show in Fresno, about 9,800 folks in attendance. The show earned 305,000 pay-per-view buys, which is about par for the course for the first half of the year for the pay-per-views of this company. Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler on commentary here, and your opening bout sees a battle of the alliterations as Val Venis takes on Jeff Jarrett. Val recently debuted for the company soon after WrestleMania as the retired porn star turned wrestler, and he's got an undefeated streak at this point. Recently ran into conflict with Kai En Tai and their manager Yamaguchi-san, so he retaliated by making a sex tape with Yamaguchi-san's wife, as you do. Val Venis in the ring and says, "California, here I come." He's seemingly about to pull his dick out when suddenly we hear the voice of Tennessee Lee going, "Ready?
Ready? Now hold on there, boy."
Jarrett shows up with Tennessee Lee and Southern Justice, aka the former Godwins. Those two, though, are kicked out as Kai En Tai and Yamaguchi-san suddenly show up. Then the wrestlers leave. Nice payday for those guys. Yamaguchi-san joins commentary and looks ridiculous with his Yankees cap. Lawler can't stop asking questions about Yamaguchi-san's wife as the match goes on. Venis missing a dive. Jarrett tries to capitalize but gets dropped on the top rope. Nice back and forth in this match. Things look real crisp with these two here. Jarrett with a clothesline to the outside, giving Tennessee Lee the chance to nail a cheap shot. Jarrett spikes Val with a DDT. The sleeper is countered, then turned into a slam. Nice fisherman suplex by Val on a 2 count. The money shot is attempted. Tennessee Lee drops him on his Venis. The figure 4 countered and a kick out. Val with a roll up and the win. Val on the mic afterward to Yamaguchi-san makes a short joke and says his wife was right. He'll never measure up to Val Venis. I'm going to give this one 3.5 stars out of 5. I think it's actually a really strong opener. If you can avoid / ignore all the lack of chemistry on commentary between Yamaguchi-san and JR and King and just focus on the wrestling, it's actually really solid stuff. I think Val and Jarrett have great chemistry together. Their stuff looks crisp, it looks tight, and it's just like, it's actually a really good match. So go check that one out because I think it's actually a really good showing for both of those guys. But of course, Val Venus' story with Kaientai would not be done because the following night, Taka Michinoku would join the group and reveal he's actually the brother of Yamaguchi-san's wife, and of course this would lead to...
Have a message! Jumpy, beep, beep! Ha ha!
In our next matchup, D-Generation X's X-Pac takes on the new champion of Europe, D'Lo Brown. D'Lo beat Triple H last week on Raw to become the new champion with some help from The Rock. This, though, is not a title match. Opening headlock. D'Lo sucks. D'Lo sucks. That's heat, baby. D'Lo with the early advantage. Nice heel kick. X-Pac responds with a kick of his own, but Brown still applying the pressure. X-Pac thrown hard into the corner at one point. D'Lo with a second rope elbow as Lawler says that Brown is, quote, smarter than a tree full of owls. Now, that's an old-timey saying. D'Lo goes up top again, tries the moonsault, but misses. X-Pac makes his comeback, hits the Bronco Buster. Here comes Godfather on the apron with a distraction. X-Pac takes him down, but walks right into the sky high. D'Lo wins. Makes you wonder why the belt wasn't on the line. I'll give it 3 stars out of 5. It was a pretty good matchup here, and I'll say this, young Brian Zane's heart was definitely warmed watching this match back, knowing that they're going to have a multi-month rivalry as this goes on for the European title. It really endeared me to both of those guys as a new wrestling fan, and also endeared me to the European title. I was crushed when that belt, was left in the dustbin of history, because the European Championship was one of my favorite belts, specifically because of that feud of X-Pac and D'Lo. Lawler spending all show talking about Sable. No tan lines, JR! Then we go to some breaking news in the web zone, where Kevin Kelly announces The Undertaker has not yet arrived at the arena, even though he's in the main event. And I'm sorry, Dr. Tom, I can't hear what you're saying over your shirt. Tag match up next, as the unbeaten Too Cold Scorpio and Farouk take on the relatively new team of Bradshaw and Terry Funk. Hey everyone, Terry's got some big news for us.
I'm gonna quit the company after this matchup. Oh, never mind, I'll come back in 6 months. Actually, I'm never retiring.
Bradshaw looking understandably pissed to suddenly learn about this with his tag team partner. They mentioned at the beginning of the match that Bradshaw and Scorpio are 2 men who have advanced in the Brawl for All tournament, and that right there is pretty much the one and only time the Brawl for All is mentioned on air on this show. Bradshaw and Farouk beat each other up for a bit, which is kind of funny to see considering where they end up less than a year later. Terry tags in, gets some shots on Farouk, Funk losing his grip on Farouk, which allows him to catch Bradshaw right into a power slam. Scorpio goes up top, but Funk crotches him. Funk throws Scorpio out of the ring, repeatedly bashing him into the barricade. JR not focusing much on this matchup here, repeatedly shouting that The Undertaker is the conscience of the Federation and that it's so odd he's not there yet. Funk goes to leap off the ropes and lands on Scorpio. Back in the ring, Scorpio kicks out of a roll-up and Funk just walks right into Farouk. Big leg drop by Scorp. There's an awkward moment here where there's a kick out. Bradshaw just stomps on Terry anyway. Scorpio hits Funk with the 450 and wins. Bradshaw's pissed and just lariats the heck out of the Funker. Scorpio comes back and he gets the crap beaten out of him as well. Farouk shows up, he gets hit with a chair. Dear God, people, stop coming out to check on these wrestlers or Bradshaw's just gonna beat you up. 2 stars out of 5 for me. The match was okay, just really no heat to it. I don't think there's much build to this matchup here. And then Terry just dropping that bomb before the match begins where he's gonna retire supposedly or take a break. Just kind of, again, takes a lot of the wind out of the sails of this matchup here. It builds up more for Bradshaw being pissed. That's the only kind of thing you really get out of this match though, is that. Time for another big boy battle on tap as Vader takes on the Nation's Mark Henry. Not sure where this match formed from because the build for this sure as heck wasn't on Raw. Then the bell rings. The crowd's really pumped up about this matchup, very excited, and then they immediately fuck it up on the very first spot.
And Vader!
Henry gets more offense in, does a lot of big jumping moves back to back, goes for a sunset flip, and Vader counters with a big sit and a splash. We get a 2 count. Vader with an avalanche and a big as hell clothesline. On the outside, Vader throwing Mark into the steel steps. Vader with a second rope splash, a kick out at 2. Mark with a freaking ridiculous power slam and a splash of his own. The 3 count, Henry wins. I also give this match 2 stars out of 5. If you mess up the very first move in a match, it is a long road ahead in trying to regain the fans' excitement and interest. But they did an okay job kind of bouncing back from that. Still kind of a rough match, all told. It never gets old, though, seeing Vader get thrown around like he's nothing. Seeing big guys do very quick, athletic things, to me, that's more exciting than cruiserweight stuff. Why do you think football fans love fat guy touchdowns? Back in the web zone, they're still speculating as to the whereabouts of The Undertaker. You can actually see Vince Russo himself back there, too. But back in the arena, out come the unholy trio, the tag champs Kane and Mankind, and Paul Bear, as Jim Ross calls them poster boys for pestilence. What a tagline. In the red lighting, Paul Bear is saying The Undertaker is a coward and that he won't be there to help Stone Cold in the main event. Suddenly, listen, it's the New Age Outlaws. The former tag champs want to challenge them in another rematch for the titles tomorrow on Raw. Then Billy Gunn starts the fight early and all four men come to blows as refs and officials try to break it up. Okay then, more tag action up next as the Legion of Doom take on the Disciples of Apocalypse with their new manager, Paul Ellering. How did we get to this point? Well, a couple of weeks beforehand on Raw, the LOD came out and said, we're bringing back Paul Ellering. He was our old manager back in the day. Ellering comes out, then DOA comes out. Ellering is like, my new tag team is DOA actually. Bam, sneak attack. And so Ellering now fancies himself as Mr. .com, the wizard of the web. Doesn't get enough promo time really to explore that new wrinkle in his character, but he also talks about how he needs to only program one mind because Skull and 8-Ball are twins. They're the same person. They share one brain, so he only has to tell one guy what to do. Also, Hawk's getting all doped up in real life and in storyline now. Animal and Hawk start off strong. Hawk going for a shoulder tackle in the corner but gets nothing but ring post. Ellering with repeated shots on Hawk on the outside. Skull or 8-Ball slowly work over Hawk. In comes 8-Ball or Skull with a boot. Hawk finds an opening. We get a big hot tag to Animal. They hit the Doomsday device on Skull or 8-Ball, but the pin is broken up. More Ellering guff. He finally gets punched after about 8 interference spots. The non-legal biker using twin magic hits the DDT on Animal to win. I'm going to give it 1 star out of 5. I thought this match was very boring. I thought Ellering interfered way too much and made everyone look dumb as a result, and I just don't care for the DOA in general as a gimmick. I think they're boring as hell. So who wants more promos on a show they paid money for? Out comes Mr. McMahon with Briscoe, Patterson, and Commissioner Slaughter. What of The Undertaker's appearance? If he no-shows, don't blame Vince McMahon. It was Austin who's been fighting Taker all this time, not Vince. As he's talking, we see some big TVs being wheeled in front of the front row. Aw shit, it's movie day in class, y'all. Vince reminds us that card is subject to change. He reads from the program insert that he has the right to order a suitable substitution should Taker not appear. It's the Brooklyn Brawler. Womp womp. Oh dear, Stone Cold. On we go now to the dungeon match as Owen Hart takes on the world's most dangerous man, Ken Shamrock, with special referee Dan the Beast Severn. A few weeks after WrestleMania, Owen turned heel by attacking his then tag partner Ken Shamrock, breaking his ankle, joining the Nation of Domination. But the funny thing is, as we are now in the month of July, Owen's been part of the Nation for a while. The Nation is very much deeply in their feud with D-Generation X, but Owen has so little to do now, it seems, with that particular thing because he's caught up in his own stuff with Ken Shamrock, which, by the way, the Nation's not really helping him that much out on. But the cool thing about this matchup is it's taking place in the actual Hart family dungeon in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, in the basement of the Hart House, less than a year after the Montreal Screwjob involving Bret Hart makes this especially weird. But I kind of like they went to this. You know, obviously it's not something you can really pull the trigger on very often here. It's the only dungeon match in history. But I think it's kind of cool because, you know, Owen's got this beef with Ken Shamrock. Shamrock fancies himself this legitimate tough guy, this like shoot fighter and everything. Well, let's go to the Hart family dungeon where Stu Hart stretched a bunch of wrestlers over the years and where Owen Hart, that's his home turf, that's his domain. So from that standpoint, I kind of like the build and the justification of using the Hart family dungeon. We cut to this pre-taped match in the dungeon. Owen's already there in his Zubaz shorts. Dan's just chilling. Nice intro for Ken, makes his way down the steps doing his little duh noise. Starts out with some grabs, Ken shoving Owen into the wall. Owen with a low blow and hits a spinning heel kick in the dungeon. Owen hangs off the pipe, hits a Hurricane Rana, hell yeah. Ken tries one of his own a minute or so later but gets slammed onto the floor. They keep working the same two walls for a while, Owen throwing Ken into the pipe above, then slamming his head through the drywall in the ceiling. We get the sharpshooter locked in, Ken fights out, an errant kick knocks down Severn. Owen takes out Ken with one of the dumbbells in the dungeon, then makes the unconscious Ken tap out, quote unquote, so Severn calls the match. I give it 2.5 stars out of 5. There was not much to this match. There was only so much you can do in a space with very little headroom and no outside and no ropes and not even a proper like mat and canvas like a ring does. But again, the fact that this match happened is so random and so unique, I can't help but like give it props just for its uniqueness. Again, how many times do you ever see a segment, let alone a match, filmed in the dungeon. Speaking of the DX Nation rivalry, in a 2 out of 3 falls match for the Intercontinental Championship, The Rock defends against Triple H. The build for this match includes the infamous DX parody of the Nation, which has been removed from the Peacock version of that episode of Raw. Now, I have talked before on this channel that blackface is no good. I don't care if it's 2023 or 1998 or 1988. It's just icky all across the board. The historical precedent and the story behind blackface is all you need to know about that, and so I will remain steadfast on that point. But I do know that X-Pac, he apparently was uncomfortable with it, and he asked Mark Henry about it, and Henry gave him his blessing. And many years ago, when I was talking with D'Lo Brown in Orlando, when he was the guest at our WrestleCon table that weekend, it came up in conversation, and I asked him, so what did you think of this moment? And he told us that, the Nation was totally cool with it. They thought it was hilarious. They had a blast and everything. And, it's different strokes for different folks. If they're cool with it, that's fine. But, there's a lot of people who aren't cool with it. And I will just reiterate, as a baseline, blackface is no good. The segment also featured a young Jason Sensation as Owen Hart, and that was kind of his claim to fame, was this kid's stellar impersonations of not only Owen Hart, but also a bunch of different wrestlers. As we saw the following week, he was there and did a bit where he got beat up by Owen Hart after doing a bunch of other voices.
I know I'm late, but my nose got here 10 minutes ago. Woo!
As someone, again, who's brand new to wrestling, not familiar with all the characters, who is this guy, Jason Sensation? And then after that whole segment was done, where's Jason Sensation? Why don't we see more of him? This match was going to be title for title, as Triple H was the European champion up till a week ago. See the D'Lo X-Pac match for more context on that. DX and Nation members are all removed from the scene, as if that matters. Only Chyna remains, as she has a manager's license though. Lots of back and forth punching to start things off. Rock is strong for a good while. Chyna with an early shot from the outside though. H goes for a pedigree, but Rock counters. They fight for a bit on the outside, and H is whipped into the steps. Helmsley comes back with a neck breaker, but the comeback is short-lived. Back on the outside, big suplex on the floor. Mark Henry shows up, hits a big splash, then Billy Gunn makes the save. Not enough to put H away. Rock goes for his float-over DDT. Lawler's far more interested in the bikini contest after the match than this. Rock is unable to put his opponent away. Triple H launches Rock into the ropes. Both men are down. Then out comes the Godfather. Now he's cut off by the Outlaws. D'Lo shows up, but he is soon thwarted, but he walks right into a Rock bottom, and Rocky wins the first fall. Rock lays it in some more on the outside, hits the people's elbow and a kick out, the double down. D'Lo pops back up, Chyna makes him pay for it. X-Pac with the X Factor on the Rock. We get a kick out. Rock grabs a chair, swings to the fences, and decks the ref on accident. Chyna with a huge low blow and a DDT on the chair. H covers and gets the second fall, but by the time the 1 minute rest period's over, we're at the 2 minute warning, or the half-hour time limit. They're fighting back and forth. Triple H with the pedigree just before time expires. It ends in a draw, which means the Rock retains the Intercontinental Gold. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. I give so much credit to these guys for being able to captivate the audience for as much as they did, for as long as they did, for the full half-hour limit. I think what kind of took me out of it was the constant interference from DX and Nation members. If you're going to have these people be ejected, then, what's the point? You might as well have them all out there if they're going to be cheating anyway. So I think that was something that kind of took me out of it and kind of knocked the score down a little bit for me. But besides that, though, I think that the actual work involved and the work that Triple H and The Rock did was great and set up the foundation for even more of their rivalry, culminating like we're going to see in the SummerSlam 98 ladder match. Back in the web zone, Kevin Kelly declares The Undertaker has finally arrived. Dr. Tom, what do you have to say? There are still questions, Kevin. I'm going to go now to the semi-main event of the bikini contest as Sable takes on Jacqueline, and oh my God, you know what? I don't want to speak ill of the dead, God rest his soul, but this Jerry Springer-ass storyline. The gist of the storyline is that Mark Mero walked away from his sexy valet who stole his thunder to join up with another sexy valet who is stealing his thunder. Sable did lose a match on pay-per-view where she was supposed to be gone from the Federation forever, but that lasted maybe a week before she was brought back by Vince McMahon to do odd jobs. We get a tale of the tape between the two ladies, round and sexy, firm and tight. But first, it's time for born-again Dustin Runnels in his sleeveless WWF button-up. He wants to pray to the Heavenly Father and protect all these sinners orders from Satan. He warns that the Messiah, aka Goldust, is coming soon and he goes to leave. Great line from JR. Follow that, King. Out come Jackie and Sable. Jackie struts her stuff to Mark Marrow's theme, even gives the fans a little extra show. King then telling Jackie to go to a neutral corner, which then followed up by JR repeating that phrase makes it hilarious.
Right over there to a neutral corner, Jacqueline. Neutral corner.
It's Sable's turn now. She takes off her shirt to reveal a comparatively modest top. She says Mr. McMahon put the kibosh on her original idea and told her to dress more conservatively, but Vince can't do a damn thing about this. Boom! The hand-shaped body paint on the titties. She wins by popular vote, but then Mr. McMahon shows up and covers her up with his blazer. What an asshole. They announced the next night that body paint does not constitute a bikini, therefore by disqualification, your winner is Jacqueline. Ooh, the heat on that one. Well, are The Undertaker and Kane in cahoots against Stone Cold Steve Austin? It was the storyline of the season, and we hope to get some answers in this main event, but will the answers become questions as Stone Cold and The Undertaker team up against Kane and Mankind for the WWF Tag Team Championships? First, there was what happened at King of the Ring, The Undertaker costing Austin the match and the title because otherwise Kane would have set himself on fire. Vince makes Taker and Austin a tag team, then makes a triple threat match for the number one contendership with The Undertaker, Kane, and Mankind. Taker's a no-show. Kane brutalizes Mankind with the chair and beats him to win, or does he? He unmasks to reveal Taker, which I thought was pretty damn badass. Then The Undertaker leaves Austin high and dry for a while in the go-home episode of Raw and seems to go to hit Austin with the chair, but he hits Kane instead. Meanwhile, Kane and Mankind won the tag belts from the Outlaws a couple weeks ago, making this now for the championships. Also, the fact that Mankind is working at any capacity at this point is truly mind-boggling to me considering what happened at King of the Ring. He should have taken at least a month off, but he was working matches again maybe 2 weeks afterward. So no Brooklyn Brawler here, but yes, this is where Taker debuts the Ministry version of his theme, one of my favorites of all time, so it's a fair trade. Austin comes out, we get a stare down on the aisle with he and Taker before the champions attack. The challengers stand tall at first, Austin gives his partner the bird. The match is officially underway. A couple of minutes in, we actually see Taker fighting Kane for a bit, and he gives the bird back to Austin. Undertaker and Mankind fight for a bit. Kane tags in and chokeslams his own brother. JR with a great call saying, Paul Bearer just damned The Undertaker to hell, I'm sorry to say. Action spills to the outside. Mankind wants to go for his elbow off the apron, gets knocked off by Austin into the announce table, which does not give an inch. Kane shoves Taker into his own corner, letting Austin tag in for the first time in a while. A chair is brought into the ring, and Austin dinks Kane with it while the referee's back is turned. Austin dropped over the railing, which JR describes as inhuman when we're just about to watch a big old chair shot on replay. Austin getting the heat piled on him, Jerry constantly bouncing back and forth as to whether or not there is collusion. They fight each other and King goes, no collusion! Taker resists going into the ring illegally to attack Kane and Jerry's like, collusion! Kane hits Austin with a choke slam, goes for a tombstone. Fat chance I get dropped again, you silly bastard! Stunner to Kane, wham! Stunner to Mankind, wham! Austin reaches for the tag, Taker not so much. Finally he does, and we get the big tag. Taker hits Kane with a tombstone, and he's holding on to him for dear life on that one. The 3 count, and Taker beats his brother for he and Stone Cold to become unlikely tag champions. Taker grabs both title belts and leaves Austin all by his lonesome as the show fades to black. I give it 3 stars out of 5. The match was not bad, just kind of unspectacular, and really didn't give us any answers to the questions or questions to the answers based on the way they booked this match. The way that Taker waffles back and forth in this matchup, and really the whole storyline up until SummerSlam, I'm not sure if it's engaging or confusing looking back at it. But as a teenager at the time, I ate all this up. I'm like, oh my God, this is high art, this is incredible, and I was none the wiser. So I don't know about this one. The tag belts I'm not sure needed to be a tool in this storyline because it ends up going back to Kane and Mankind like right after this, and that's just a way for it to go back on the Outlaws by SummerSlam. So did the tag belts need to be a factor in this? I'm not entirely sure. I guess it's a way to keep Austin and Taker teaming together, like to justify them being a team for a little bit longer going into SummerSlam, but yeah, that union is not much longer for this world. My grade for the inaugural fully loaded in your house pay-per-view is a C+. There are certainly a couple of bright spots on this show, except maybe for the 2 out of 3 falls match. Nothing I would really say was like pay-per-view worthy, but there was also a lot of filler and a couple of bad matches on this show. How many promos does one need to help fill out 3 hours? Well, watch this show and you get a pretty good idea. Certainly this show is, even though it bears a lot of significance to me personally as a fan, it is greatly overshadowed by King of the Ring the previous month and SummerSlam the next month. Those two shows are much better on the whole than this one is, but it meant a lot more to me as a teenager is what I'll say. But what did you think of Fully Loaded 98, folks? I want to hear about it in the comment section below, and be sure to give the video a thumbs up and subscribe if you have not yet for Wrestling with Regret. Next time on the Classic Review, we are going to jump ahead several years in the timeline to my hometown of Portland, Oregon, when they hosted their first ever WWE pay-per-view. And boy, what a maiden voyage to sail off on. It's Unforgiven 2004. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.